Hey Sweet
ketlabdreamingpeach.com.
Peaches, how are you? Happy Saturday. I made this video yesterday, which was Friday, May 2nd. This video is about an hour and a half, and I am talking about my opinions of the Karen Read retrial day 8. And a couple of things. First and foremost, my opinion and interest in this case has to do with justice for John O'Keefe, and I feel like that gets lost a lot because the focus is Karen. What did she do? What did she know? Where was she? What did everybody else do? What were they all doing and saying? And a lot of times I feel that the point of this whole trial, which is to get justice for John O'Keefe, gets lost. So I wanted to say that first to start this video. This video is about justice for John O'Keefe. Another thing is that I am still heavily leaning towards believing that Karen Read did hit him with her SUV and left him there. Based on the things that came out yesterday, especially, I feel that she absolutely knew that he was out there in the snow. She said, "I was expecting to find him on the side of the road." I also talk about throughout this video that I feel like they don't have a shred of evidence against Jen McCabe, Carrie Roberts, the Alberts, and on and on and on. And I know that there are a huge amount of people who are devoted to Karen Read. I see it as a pro-Karen sycophant Kool-Aid drinking cult. That's how I see it, especially as each day goes by and more evidence comes out. And when I say there's not a shred of evidence against them, what I think is that maybe I would say there are shreds. There's shreds of evidence, but they are so flimsy and they are so minor, in my opinion, being blown out of proportion to try to piece together this huge conspiracy theory of collusion and covering up and all that stuff. And I'm personally not convinced. I don't see it. I'm not buying it. I'm not convinced that these people are lying and covering up a horrific murder, that they are elaborately rusing a frame job on Karen Read. I just don't see it. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. So if you're very pro Karen Read, you should probably skip this one, and or you can listen for my opinion. And don't forget to hit like, share, subscribe, and leave comments, but only nice ones. Okay, enjoy the video. Hello, Sweet Peaches. Day 8 of the Karen Read retrial wrapped up. This is my review, my thoughts, my going over my notes that I took during the day while I was listening. These are various clips that I took from the morning till now. It is 2:26 a.m. on, well, it's actually Saturday now, Saturday, May 3rd, 2025. However, this was mostly recorded on Friday. Trial day 9 will start back up on Monday. Buckle in and enjoy this if you are not a pro-Karen sycophant Kool-Aid drinking cult member, or if you're an objective person who you have questions, you don't know, you're interested, and you'd like to know what I thought about today and trial so far. And I do mention Wendy Adelson for a blip. And I'll see you at the end and throughout the whole thing. Actually, it's about an hour and a half, mostly of me talking. I show some images and some clips and stuff like that. So enjoy the video. And don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Oh my God, 2:27 a.m. There's that number again, 2:27 a.m.
I describe this to everyone, so you've probably heard this before, but John looked like a buffalo on the prairie. It was just a lawn and a heat that it wasn't a bush or a hydrant or a dog. It was a weird shaped lump at that time in those elements. And I was looking to find him on the side of the road. I was expecting I'd find him, and the fear of what I was going to see is the worst feeling I've ever experienced. The anticipation of what is awaiting me was as extreme a feeling. I wouldn't say it was as extreme a feeling as the grief of realizing what happened to him.
Hello, my lovely peaches. How are you? So it is Friday, May 2nd, 2025. It's day 8 of the Karen Reed trial. It is 11:22 a.m. right now, Eastern Standard Time. They're probably done with their break at the moment, or they're just finishing up their morning break. So I think for now, the way I'm going to do this, because I'm not going to sit and stream trial all day long like Emily D. Baker does. And I did just pop into her stream since they went to a break, and I thought, oh, let me see what she's doing. And she was like behind, which is what she does, which is cool, which is what I like to do. But I'm caught up at the moment, although I'm going to have a phone call with a client. I'm going to end up like being behind a bit. It's part of why I'm happy to be paused right now, because I'm finding, similar to how I ended up watching the trial at the end of it last time, all of the comments from people, and even the comments of Emily, although I do agree she's being pretty fair, I do actually find it distracting. And I guess I've just kind of gotten a little more advanced in my trial watching tastes, because now I find it more distracting to have somebody in the corner making comments instead of just listening to what the lawyer's questions are and what the witness is responding, and having Emily making little quips. I find it to be distracting because I'm trying to get my own opinion, which is not colored by someone else. I don't mind listening to her opinion after or getting the recap. I do like listening to Peter Tragos. I like Lawyer Lee a lot. I find Peter Tragos, I do think he's a defense attorney, and so he does always, when he leans anyway, it does tend to be in the defense's favor, because that's just where his mindset is, although he is very fair. Lawyer Lee, I'm not sure what her background is as far as what kind of lawyer she is. But what I find about her is that she doesn't seem to be swept up in all of this, like, BS. I don't know, this pro-Karen BS. I feel like she's just reporting fairly. So anyway, as far as today goes, Jen McCabe is being cross-examined again by Alan Jackson. I just checked. They're actually still out at the break. And there are people in the chat who are like, here's one. You all have been bamboozled by a slippery used car salesman to believe his client is innocent. Come on. Doubt has to be reasonable, not TV plot lines. That is such a good comment, because that's how I feel. Here's another one. If you believe all those people are lying to set her up, people who didn't know each other, EMTs, firefighters, volunteers, etc., LOL, then you're a sheep who just enjoys the drama for show and not facts. Okay, then here's somebody, gee, why did Jen say nefarious? So, as Alan Jackson was questioning her, what was one of the questions he kept trying to, he was saying, like, did you tell Trooper Proctor something? I don't remember the exact detail. And she said, well, I don't know exactly the words I said. She said, I've spoken in multiple grand juries. I've spoken to multiple cops during multiple phone calls, in person. Like, there are so many different interviews. And she said, you're trying to pinpoint an exact word on an exact date. And she said, there's nothing nefarious. And he said, oh, why did you say nefarious? Do you feel like there's something nefarious? Do you think this is coming across nefarious? And she's being so calm. I am so impressed with how she's handling this. And she said, no, I feel like you're trying to imply that there's something nefarious, but I'm just telling you. She said, I know what happened. I remember what happened. I might not remember exactly what I said, exactly to who, exactly when, and exactly what specific verbatim words. I'm paraphrasing. But I know what happened, and I know what I said, and I know what I remember. And I feel like that's honest. And it's so crazy to me that people think she's guilty of what? And then they're showing Alan Jackson was having Jen McCabe read some group texts, some between her and her sister. Well, that's not a group text. Some texts between her and her sister, and then some group texts between her husband, her sister, and her sister's husband. And they're talking about the cops are, interviewing, and they're talking about various things about it. And at one point, Matt, her husband, says, tell them the guy never went in the house. And the other person responds, exactly. And people are like, oh my God, he called him the guy. It's like, okay, people do tend to, like people are upset that when Jen called 911, she said there's a man in the snow. The thing is that when it's somebody, some people will say, oh my God, my friend. But it's not unusual for somebody who's shocked. I think I talked about this in another video. The way Karen was acting, screaming hysterically and running around, yes, that could be because she was genuinely shocked and appalled and didn't know and confused. But the way that Jen and Carrie was acting is also perfectly normal. When something incredibly shocking and traumatic is happening, it's normal to distance yourself with your words and to just be like numb and to seem as if you're not upset because you're just shocked. She wasn't being casual, chill, and laughing. She was obviously in distress. That's how I feel. I just don't get it how people, I don't know. I am so utterly confused about how people think that this looks like Jen is lying. I don't know. I feel like you're really, really reaching. You're really, really desperate to try to make something seem like something that it isn't. I feel like I have to show the fan. Right? We got to see the fan because that's part of this trial, the only fan. Day 8. I'm watching on Law and Crime. You can see a few of the text messages, the chats. They're going by pretty fast. Karen said herself she hit him, let alone the blood hair and the taillight. Jen's blinking was crazy. Correct. The guilty take the stand. Let's see. The guilty ones avoid the stand. Who thinks Karen is innocent? Yes, he was killed in the house, in my opinion. John was onto them. What? And their corruption. Onto them. They knew it, so they beat him. A car didn't do that to him. We have so many detectives in here, I see. Look at this one thinking Jen is lying. What's taking so long? Karen has nothing to gain from taking the stand. Innocent, not guilty. Some of y'all are delusional. I agree with that. I agree that some of y'all are delusional because it's insane to me that people think, here, there were no tracks, footsteps from the house to the pole. There's, and it's like the idea that all these people did all this stuff and there's zero evidence of it and it's a cover-up. I don't know. I feel like people are just desperate for drama, but I do believe that in the end of the day, well, we'll see. Okay, it's only day 8. There are about 8 weeks of this trial, apparently. I think this is the second week, yeah. Well, the 8th day would make us inside the second week, but it is Friday. Monday's a half day because they're going to be talking about streamlining the process, and I'm not sure if that's going to be you know, on camera or not, but I will make another clip with more thoughts. So, well, it'll come right after this one, but now I've got to get to work and I'll be back. So, let's do an update. I've watched the rest of the day. There's a bunch of clean clothes on the bed because my children came home and I had clean clothes on the bed to help them pack for their night. So the end of day 8, and I feel, again, my thoughts at the end of day 8 are that Karen Reed is guilty at the bare minimum of hitting him with her SUV. I don't know if she did it on purpose. I don't know if she knew she did it. Well, no, I do think she knew she did it. Because if I'm going to play some clips. So this video I'm going to do a little differently. I'm going to read my notes that I wrote as I was listening to the day. And then I'm going to show the clip that I screen recorded of her saying specifically that she was anticipating finding him on the side of the road. And that the feeling of that was just as bad as, let's say, I'm going to read it real fast. I was with Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts, and Carrie Roberts' Ford Explorer. And I'm in the back, leaning over the front seats, and Carrie's driving and Jen's in the passenger seat. I described this to everyone, so you probably heard this before. John looked like a buffalo on the prairie. It was just a lawn and a heap that wasn't a bush or a hedge or a dog. It was a weird-shaped lump at that time in those elements, and I was looking to find him on the side of the road. I was expecting I'd find him, and the fear of what I was going to see is the worst feeling I've ever experienced. The anticipation of what is awaiting me was as extreme of a feeling as it was as extreme of feeling the grief of realizing what happened to him. That's what she said in an interview on an interview docu-series on April 13th. I missed the 2024. Oh my God, 2024. So she said, I've described this to everyone, so you probably heard this before. John looked like a buffalo on the prairie. Wow, it was a weird-shaped lump at that time in those elements, and I was looking to find him on the side of the road. I was expecting I'd find him, and the fear of what I was going to see is the worst feeling I've ever experienced. The anticipation of what is awaiting me was as extreme a feeling. It was as extreme a feeling as the grief of realizing what happened to him. And those pro-Karen sycophant simps, cult delusional people are out here still. I really do feel disappointed in Emily D. Baker, I will say. I watched today on Law and Crime. I'm trying to move over so that the captions have more room. I watched today on Law and Crime because I didn't feel like hearing her comments, and I want to hear it like pure. I want to hear it without being influenced by her comments. Then I did go back, and because she plays it like, she's behind, I was a little bit behind, but I wasn't as behind as her. So when it ended for the day for me, I went back and I watched wherever she was. She was just starting with the forensic scientist, Hannah Knowles, forensic scientist for Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab. Okay, so I really have to go. I have to run out for a minute, and I'm working on some things because I have to run out before it's too late because I need to get some cash, and And then I have some work that I want to get done a little bit tonight. And then I'm going to work on the rest of this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show, let me see if I can pull them up a little bit. My hair looks so weird. So, oops. Well, that's my burnt bagel biscuit that I was heating up while my kids needed me to help them pack. And that's not what I want to do. Okay, so I want to show the house. Let's see. Okay, so here's an image that I took from Google Maps. This is 34 Fairview Road. These are 20 feet clips, and I don't know if you can see it, but I lined them up perfectly so you can see this is 20 feet, 40 feet, 20, 40, 60, 80 feet. Okay, and it's a little bit skewed, so you could say, let's see, you know, like I said, it's about a 50-foot lawn. Okay, so here, down here, you can see that it says 50 feet is that little dash. And then here you can see, let me move over here. Okay, this is the house. And here are two of those little dashes on the lawn. So you can actually see that from the flagpole right here to the middle of the driveway is about 100 feet. And I had said I thought that from the front porch to where he was is about 50 feet. And when you calculate that it was dark, that there was probably street lights making certain parts visible and other parts darker, and the front. Okay, so wait, is this the neighbor? Right, so this is the neighbor who never came outside through all the lights, all the there was no sirens. Who never came out. They Brennan confirmed through questioning Jen McCabe, were there any sirens on the ambulances? Were there any sirens on the fire trucks or on the police car? No sirens. Lights, yes. Did this neighbor come out? This is where John was. And this house is actually closer to the body. Okay, this is where the flagpole is. This is where he was found. This house is actually much closer to where everything was happening than their house. Now this photo does not look that wide because of the angle and everything. So this is the front door. This is where they were getting in their cars, going out, and like the idea that, okay, so she's saying she was at the front door and she's looking straight ahead and she's not seeing the body. And in this photo, it looks like it's 2 inches away, but it's about 80 feet away. Maybe 50 feet away. But from here to here looks really, really close. It looks like it's about 5 inches in this photo. But there is such a thing as perception and perspective and field of vision and depth. And so this makes it look very condensed. But he was over here and they were coming out over here. And this is where the driveway, this is also important. Well, I forgot to flip this one, but actually it works just fine. Because you can see his body was over here somewhere. They come out of the front door over here. They're going that way. They have to come out of the front door and go this way to where these cars are, okay? And then you can even just get a sense of the size of it because look at the car in the driveway. Look at how many cars could potentially fit behind it. There's this one car. You could fit maybe 2, 3 cars. That's a large driveway. That's like a 6-car driveway right there. That gives you a sense of the distance, okay? So this is the length of the driveway. They're coming out of here. They're going into here. They're pulling out this way and going here. So I think they went this way. But if they're not looking at all over here, it doesn't look at all like they had to have seen him. I don't think so. Again, even though this one is condensed, you see they came out from here. They go this way. They're like literally with their back to wwhere he would be. And then they're getting in their cars and they're, Hello, sweet peaches, and I'm back. It is still Friday, May 2nd, 2024. It is now 9:13 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Okay, but I'm going to get back to these photos, these Google Maps photos. This is the back of what was the Albert's house, 34 Fairview. This is the front lawn. Here you can see he was found somewhere over here. So you can see how the neighbor could have heard it. I mean, there's trees and stuff. So, but it was winter, so there were no leaves. But I don't know, are these evergreens? I don't know. But it was snowing. It was a blizzard. People were sleeping. It was like, these people didn't come out. Okay, I'm going to show some more. Before I get back into those photos and talking some more about my thoughts about the way it might have gone down and all that stuff. Is it cute notebook? Put that away. Make it a little neater. Okay. Still see that shit? So back to my recapping of my thoughts about the Karen Reed retrial, trial number 2, what I think about testimony today, and my continued thoughts. Today was Jen McCabe for almost the entire day. There might have been a half an hour. So now I'm going to read my notes. Then I'm going to show the photos, the screenshots that I took of 34 Fairview Road. And I'm going to point out some things. And then I have a little video that I took to show some things. And then I screen recorded about 4 minutes of the clip of Karen Reed on the docuseries talking about how she was expecting to find John on the side of the road, which to my mind, she's confessing. Did you hear the neighbor scream? She's confessing that she knew he was dead and she knew he was on the side of the road. How would she know that? How would she have known that in the car? Unless she knew that. Alan Jackson asked Jen McCabe, did you say you texted at 12:45 p.m. and that the SUV was still there? She said that she wasn't sure exactly, like she might have said that, but I think John's cell phone data proved that that was not true, and I think there's video or something to prove that Karen Reed got back to the house to John's house at 12:36. At least that's what I thought. That's what people were saying in the chat, which they could be wrong because a lot of them are Karen sycophants, cult members in my opinion. Oh, let me go back to why I said I was disappointed today in Emily. And maybe this is her opinion because she's a hardcore lawyer and she's looking at things from that place. But I personally don't think that the average person or like a juror is going to be analyzing it at that level. Maybe they will, maybe they should. But let's see, a couple things I was disappointed in Emily about. One was when she said that she thought it was kind of an evasive answer when Jen McCabe said that when she looked out the window again and the SUV was gone and she saw tire tracks in the snow on the road where the street light was shining, and Alan Jackson repeatedly, like 5,000 times it felt like, tried to make it seem like she had to have seen that dead body. There's no way you could look out the front
and not see the dead body right there. Or, like many people were saying, many pro-Karen people saying in the chat, there's no way that all those people came out of the house and they walked out of the house and they went to their cars and they didn't see John. Well, from what I researched today, I don't see how they could have seen him. He's 50 to 75 feet over there in the dark, in a blizzard, and the driveway is over here. So the porch, they come out and they have to go that way. They have to turn that way to go towards their cars. They get in their cars and then they're in their car. They're talking to each other, doing whatever, and they pull off and they go. And the way they pull out of the driveway, the light's not going to be shining on him all the way over there. They're going to be backing out. And when they go this way, yeah, the light might go like that for one split second, but who's staring at the lawn? You're looking at the road when you're pulling out. You're not staring over there at the lawn. Who the fuck would drive like that, especially in a blizzard? If it was daylight and there was a dead man on the lawn and it wasn't snowing or anything, then that would be pretty weird. It's bright out and you don't see the guy there, but it's pitch black. It's a blizzard. It's snowing. It's late. They're talking. They're trying to get home. So when I show you the photos, you'll tell me what you think. So what else disappointed me is how Emily, like, I feel like after you listened to today and you heard Jen McCabe explain thoroughly how she's done multiple grand juries, she's testified multiple times, she's spoken to multiple cops, EMTs, investigators. She also did share things with her family, with some friends, with Kerry Roberts, and the fact that Alan Jackson was trying to pinpoint exactly specific verbatim words said to a specific person on a specific date and a specific time. And when Jen couldn't remember exactly what she said when, but she said, I have no problem explaining what I remember. I remember everything clearly. I don't remember every detail of it, who I said what to, exactly when, what day, what time. You know, at 12:31, I said these exact words to this person. And then a lot of the questions he was asking her was, well, this person, Trooper Proctor, said this in his report. And she rightfully answered, well, I'm not speaking to you based on what his report said. I'm speaking to you based on what I remember and what I know I said. And then he's like, well, what about, Trooper Lank? It doesn't say this, or it says this exactly. And she said, again, that's his report. That's what he wrote down. I said what I said. I remember what happened. If you're asking me about like an exact phrasing of an exact sentence of something that I said on this exact date to this exact person in the middle of this extremely dynamic, traumatic, shocking, utterly out of the blue, like what the fuck is happening situation, which she said that she literally has PTSD. And when you heard the text messages between her and Kerry, how they cannot close their eyes without seeing the horror of John's dead body there in the snow. And like, I felt so much compassion and authentic honesty coming through. And then to hear Emily say, well, I find it kind of evasive the way she's trying to, she said, EDB, it reads to me as being evasive. To someone else, it might be credible. Yeah, I think it's credible, Emily. And then here was this fucking chat that somebody paid for Emily to read. Quote, I worry because the first jury found her, Jen McCabe, credible. She's completely playing victim now. I think this jury will think she's being bullied. A commenter on Emily D. Baker. So you're worried? Why would you be worried? If you're actually after truth and justice, if the first jury found Jen McCabe credible, which I found her credible, why would that worry you? Don't you care more about the truth and justice and the jury seeing the truth than what fabricated delusion that you have that's based on defense talking points, defense propaganda, in my opinion? Karen Reed is trying to frame 40 people for what she fucking did. And people are falling for it. And so, like, I just was mind boggled. This lady paid to say she's worried because the first jury found Jen McCabe credible. She's completely playing victim now. Playing victim? Victim to what? Victim to picking up a phone call at 4:53 a.m. on January 29th from her good friend's girlfriend who was screaming her name hysterically and saying she can't find Jen, hysterically saying she can't find John. He didn't come home. And then this whole scenario plays out. So I'm adding more thoughts. I believe these are ludicrous storylines, minor details, normal chats and behavior that Alan Jackson and the defense team, they are trying desperately to turn into something nefarious. All right, let me go back and make sure that I got all of my notes. Okay, Alan Jackson is trying to make Jen seem guilty, but I don't see it. He questioned her about saying a man in the snow. And I found her answers to be incredibly logical and believable. She said, I cared only about getting John the help that he needed. And I thought the best thing would be to tell the people on the 911 call the most important and most crucial and relevant information. So she wasn't being callous when Alan Jackson said, why didn't you say my friend John, a cop? She said, a man in the snow. That was the most important thing. He needed help right away. I wanted to get them the most crucial details. So then Alan says, isn't the fact that he's a cop, isn't that important? Wouldn't, maybe if you told them that it was a cop, that maybe they would get them there faster? And she actually looked incredulous that he asked her that. And she said, I think the 911 responds to everybody equally. And then, he's like, well, why didn't you say his name? This is John O'Keefe. And she said, again, the most relevant information. A man in the snow. She said, I did say his name later on in the call, but him being a cop, his name being John, and him being her friend, none of those things matter at that moment. What matters is a man in the snow. I need 911 here right now. Again, to me, not evasive, on point and correct and believable. Then he questions her about why didn't she go inside? He got her to say, he was like, isn't there somebody who's trained in this stuff in that house? And she said, yeah, her brother-in-law, Brian Albert. But she's like, I'm going to paraphrase. Essentially, what I got out of what she was saying is, why the fuck would I go over there to the house, all the fuck over there,
taking me away from John, away from giving him compressions, which she said, away from talking to the 911, getting away from grabbing blankets out of the car, which was right there. Like she said, I was focused on him. She did try to call her sister a couple times, but her sister didn't answer, and she was calling 911. And they said she had an Apple Watch, so she may have been making a bunch of other calls by accident and then hanging up and trying to like call to get help. And like the whole time that they've been questioning, why didn't she run into the house? I think it would make absolutely no sense. You're standing in front of a dead body. You're calling 911. You're not going to be like, oh, let me go run over here. And as I show how large the lawn is and how far away it actually is, you see how absurd it is to even question. Why would somebody, if she had ran into the house, I bet you 80 million thousand gazillion dollars that if Jen McCabe had left John's body there and ran into the house, that they would be using that against her 100 times worse. How could you leave him there? Why would you run into your sister's house? What would you think is going on in there? But instead, he's doing the opposite. You weren't worried about them? She's like, no, I wasn't worried about them because I was in that house a few hours ago and John never came into the house. So why would I be worried about them? His being on the lawn was obvious. It had absolutely nothing to do with anything that went on in that house because he never came into the house. And I believe her. And Dr. G Explains believes her. And the reason why I'm disappointed in Emily is because I feel that her testimony today was absolutely in your face, not at all evasive, not trying to lie. And the fact that they're trying to hinge, did she say, could have hit him? Did I hit him? I hit him, I hit him. Did you tell Trooper Proctor these exact words? Like, is it lost? Or are these tiny little details that they're trying to blow up into these enormous things? There was a Google search that was registered at 2:27 on her phone, and she admitted that she was searching on Google on her phone around that time for other things, which made sense, which were logical. And the fact that the typo, it was exact duplicate. How's long to die in cold? HOS, hose long to die in cold. So she made the same exact typo at 2:27 that she did at 6:10 p.m. a.m. at 2:27 a.m. and then she Google typed the exact typo and then 2 minutes later typed how long to die in the cold or like some other slight variation. And people are genuinely believing that Jen McCabe knew that her brother-in-law or her nephew or Brian Higgins or some other variation of a bunch of people beat John O'Keefe to death in their house, dragged him out to the snow, to the very same spot where he had been dropped off, which we know for a fact because his cell phone data shows that he was on that lawn. Okay? And it's so out there. But instead of me thinking that, the 80% of the chat that was like, Jen's a liar! And I'm saying that because of the poll that they had up. I think that 80% of that chat are just crazy. Like, for real. I guess that Emily went so hard the first time, and maybe she feels like it would be disingenuous for her to be like, you know what, I really do find her believable, and like, I get it that like there's appellate issues and you're trying to prove something, but it's like, if all Alan Jackson and Yannetti have and Elizabeth Little, all they have is like, you said, could I hit him? Did I hit him? And I hit him. But then you have a video of Karen herself saying she was expecting to find John on the side of the road when she was driving there. Jen didn't make her say that. So reading my notes again, she didn't go in the house. I think it was obvious that she was focused on John and 911. Jen not going inside her sister's house makes perfect sense to me. She knew that John had never gone in that house, and what was going on the lawn, 75 feet over there, had nothing to do with what happened that night. I think Alan Jackson is trying to make it seem like Jen was wrong to focus on John and not go inside the house. But it makes perfect sense. And in fact, if Jen had gone into the house, I think it would have been an even more bizarre, oh my God. Let's move on, Mr. Brennan. Judge Canoni, a few times asking Mr. Brennan to move on. She's not only doing it to the defense. Mr. Brennan is the attorney for the Commonwealth, prosecutor. Jen, about all something questions. Alan's questions. Jen answers questions truthfully, in my opinion. All the calls missed are likely to due to Jen being outside in the snow and the cold, frantically trying to call her sister Nicole, Coco, and this way. Let me try to move out the way. Okay, so again, we've got 50-foot dashes. And let me see. All right. So this is where John was. And you can just see how far it is. Look at this car. Okay, I just wanted to get a quick average size. So 10 to 14 feet for mid, 14 to 13 feet average, and the width average 5.5 feet, 5.5 to 6 feet. Okay, so going off of that. Okay, here's another one. It's a bit further, again showing 100 feet. Okay, this might be a little bit, let me see if I can get that closer. Okay, here's a closer view. So I'm going to turn that down. Okay, so the car, hold on. Okay, I'm going to use this one actually. So imagine if it's 10 to 15 feet long and about 5 to 6 feet wide. So that would be, let's say 5, 10, 15 feet. It's more like 20. And then if it's, let's say 10, that'd be 10, 20, 30. Okay, so if this is like a 30-foot driveway, let's see if that's accurate. Okay, so the point is, again, it looks tiny in this angle, but it's not tiny. Okay, so I'm just giving you a sense. They were over here. They were doing everything they were doing. This looks like a really little quick hop, but it's not. If this is 30, and 30 feet is saying small cars. If those are 15-foot long cars, then this is a 45-foot long driveway. Okay? About 50 feet. That's what I'm saying. Like from the front door or from this door. Did they leave out of this door? Was she looking out of this door? Was she looking out of this door or these windows or these windows or these windows? But either way,
You know, if she's looking this way, she said they were parked over here, then they were over there. But when the car was gone and she said she saw tire tracks, she's like, I'm looking this way, and this is not just like 2 feet. This is like 75 feet, or even if it's just 50 feet. That's pretty far. Even if somehow the Google Maps is completely wrong and this is 25 feet, I still think that it's very likely she wouldn't have seen it. There's a shot with the house blurred out. So see, this row of trees is blocking the lights and stuff and the commotion from that house. You can see it on this side. This is the neighbor's house. And again, I wanted to show this one where I put the 50-foot line on the lawn so you can see that even though like it's going at an angle, you know, if you were to turn it, you would see that it's still about the same. From here to there is 50 feet. From here to there is 50 feet. Okay. So from here to here, this is a 200-foot distance. So, what do you think? See, again, there's the 50-foot right here. It shows you the scale, which is very handy when you're looking at a map. The scale of the map. Okay, let me read what other notes I had. So now Brennan reading in text between Carrie and Jen the morning after. They were devastated. The text messages are really heart-wrenching. And I find it hard to believe that people can watch and listen to this and genuinely believe that Jen is lying. It's sad to me. These are the things that I was writing as I was listening to it, notes I was taking. Jen confirmed via Brennan there were no sirens, no other neighbors came out, none. John looked like a buffalo on the prairie. And then I screen recorded that video. Then Hannah Knowles, the forensic scientist for Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab, testified for the rest, and it wasn't long. Then these are questions I wrote. Why were you expecting to find him, Karen, on the side of the road? And then I wrote a note how I complained yesterday about how Elizabeth Little says, you know, her question, right? 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 That's how she ends, and it annoys me. And I noticed today that Yannetti also ends his questions with right? Right? So I'm like, oh, did she get that from him? Or did he get that from her, or whatever? The judge said next week is all day, every day. I had said, because I had heard that Monday was going to be a half day because they were going to talk about streamlining things, but apparently, I don't know. I guess not. Okay, I read that comment that really annoyed me from Emily D. Baker's person, because I feel like this comment that I worry because the first jury found her, Jen McCabe, credible, and Jen, she said she's completely playing victim now. And then she says, I think this jury, this is a commenter on Emily's page, I think this jury will think she's being bullied by probably Karen and her lawyers. And Emily agreed that, you know, that could actually, yeah. But like, what I find kind of sickening, like totally sickening about this is, if the jury found Jen credible, why don't you? Why do you think she's like, how sick is it for you, whoever you are,
whether it was this specific commenter or any of you guys out there who are like, oh my God, what a liar. When you hear what Jen went through from her own words, it's so traumatic. It's so heartbreaking. It's so upsetting. It's so PTSD generating for life, possibly. She has nightmares of what she saw. And instead of having compassion for her, instead of seeing that the guilt that she feels is probably like the idea, like, what if I could have seen him? What if I had actually seen him there? If I had seen him there at 12, whatever time that he got struck down after Karen had left, if I had seen him there, if we had seen him when we pulled out, could we have saved his life? Did he die instantaneously from the impact? Or was he laying there for a while? And I also thought it was kind of weird. One thing I will say about today, when Alan Jackson was talking to her about finding him, and like, these moments were crucial. And I'm like, he had been dead for at least 3 hours minimum at that point. Like, there was no saving John. And I'm surprised that Jen didn't push back and say, I thought that, but actually he was completely, he had been dead for a while. There was nothing I could do. But she's done testifying. I was just eating my vegan tiramisu. I'll put this aside. So just to finish up my final thoughts for day 8 of the Karen Read trial. A cute little fork. Spork. Look at my notes. I think it's a ludicrous and absurd storyline to try to blame everybody else. And as Emily D. Baker said, lots more evidence is coming out. Lots more butt dials. But with the video evidence that's coming through from these interviews and Karen's own words, Karen speaking her own thoughts, her own words. Woo! I don't know how she's going to get out of that. So the last note I will say is the trying to point out when Alan Jackson read the text, I think it was from Matt, saying, tell them the guy never came inside. And then the other person responds, exactly. And again, trying to make it seem as if, oh wait, there's a bruise on my arm. Ooh. Trying to make it seem as if that's evidence that the guy came inside and they killed him and they dragged him outside and dropped him on the lawn, and now they're covering it up. And so in order to make sure that they let him know that they're covering it up, make sure, tell him the guy never came inside. Maybe the guy, John, never came inside. And the reason that he said tell them that is because Karen Read had started spinning lies about that she dropped him off in the house. And if you believe that Karen hit him and left him there and started to spin a story to blame everybody else, then you would understand why he would say, tell them the guy never went in the house. And then people are trying to say, he called him the guy. That makes him a murderer. Okay. Just like Jen saying there's a man in the snow makes her a murderer, instead of a stressed out, panicked friend who is calling in shock, calling 911 in utter disbelief and shock that she's standing there looking at his dead body in the snow. When just a few hours ago, she was waiting for him to come inside the house so they could hang out. And then he never came in. And she thought, oh, maybe they had an argument or something. Or maybe they, just wanted to go home to the kids or whatever it was. But she was literally on the phone giving them directions to get there. So those are my thoughts for day 8. And I will just reiterate that I do not agree with the tiny variations in her testimony equaling up to a whole gigantic, huge conspiracy theory. I don't think somebody, whether she was butt dialing or just dialing on her phone frantically, or, what was Alan Jackson was like, you can't call somebody from a text messaging app? Alan, yes you can. You press their name and it can call them. Like, what are you talking about? That don't make no kind of sense. Like, and I saw people again in the chat like, oh, Alan's cooking. Jen looks so rattled. Like, maybe in your delusional telenovela mind or your soap opera or your TikTok conspiracy, crazy, delusional, pro Karen sycophant, Kool-Aid drinking lunatics. And I'm sad to see Emily and even Peter Tragos buying into this bullshit, because ultimately there's not one shred of evidence against anyone except for Karen Reed. And the fact that they're even humoring this delusional idea. Like, when I my very, 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 very first thought, when I first heard it, when I first made a first video about it, and I'm like, I haven't watched anything about this, I don't know anything about it yet, but hearing the story, the two variations, there's one version of the story where a drunk woman drove her drunk boyfriend cop to a house and accidentally or on purpose hit him, left him there, and then he died. Or she dropped him off at the house, he went into the house, then somehow, with all those people there and all that festivity and joy and a birthday and after party and stuff, he got beat to death and dragged to outside all the way over there where three cops left their murder victim, a cop, on their own front lawn. And there's no blood on the snow. There's no evidence in the house. There's no evidence whatsoever, except for some thrown out phones and somebody who vaguely might have said, I hit him, did I hit him, could I have hit him, I hit him, is he dead, he's dead. And because this one little vague difference of how she said something that she mentioned hundreds of times, but because you found one little disparity, you found one little disparity on the Celebrite, like, oh, we found it. Like, everything that they found, all their evidence is just like these little rando glitches. And to me, nah, motherfucker, that is not adding up to a conspiracy with all this amount of people. Like, no, motherfucker, no. For what purpose? And I get it. Other people are spinning stories about, oh, he found out this and he knew this and I don't see that. I feel like that is some Game of Thrones kind of conspiracy. I never watched that show, so I have no idea. Like one of those totally delusional, you want this crazy thing to be true, but yeah, there was some people who experienced trauma who were friends and family who chatted about the trauma. That's true. Is that nefarious? No. Is that weird or unusual? No. The mother of the fucking victim, the dead man, wanting to know what happened. You guys were there. What happened? Tell me what happened. What exactly happened? She wants to know what happened to her son. The fact that all the friends, all the family, they all believe that Karen did it. Instead of thinking they might know something that we don't know, you blame them? I find that to be sickening. Last time, trial 1, I thought, how despicable could a person be that they would do this, whether it was accidentally or not? I mean, obviously, if it's not accidental, then, she's going to jail forever. Or at least 25 years. But, to blame everybody else and that for them to not get pissed, how could they not be pissed? If you were to allow yourself to suspend your belief that Karen Read is being bamboozled, framed, and steamrolled and railroaded, and you consider the possibility, what if Karen Read actually did hit that man? And whether she did it on purpose at the moment or only realized it after she woke up or whatever she did. And now she's blaming Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts and Brian Albert and Matt McCabe and Trooper Proctor definitely deserved to be fired. And what he did was wrong. Did he actually break her taillight and plant evidence? Or did he just send nasty texts about somebody who he knew was a murderer? I don't know. But just because Trooper Proctor was a nasty, foul person, that does not mean that Karen didn't do the thing. Maybe Karen didn't do the thing. Maybe Jen McCabe is a liar. Maybe Carrie Roberts is a liar. Maybe the McAlberts and the McCabes and everybody else and all the EMTs and all the forensic scientists and the people who worked at the hospital and the psych eval trauma response, maybe every single person in that town is a liar, except for Karen. Maybe. The first trial, I was on a roller coaster because I went from thinking she was guilty to thinking, wait, is she guilty? To thinking, maybe she's not guilty, to thinking, no, wait, I do think she hit him. And I went up and down and back and forth. And this trial, I started out with, well, I already have a bias of thinking that I think she probably did it, but actually over the course of, the interim, listening to Peter Tragos and other people talking about it, Emily D. Baker, etc., I started to think, wait a second, I really thought that she'd hit him, because even though a lot of people kept trying to insist that the ARCA witnesses, Dr. Daniel Wolf and Dr. Andrew Rentschler, even though many people kept insisting, they said it's impossible. They said there's no way. They said it would never have happened like that. Actually, Andrew did admit, well, she could have nudged him, meaning she could have killed him with her SUV. I heard that part. And they showed his body. Well, we didn't really see it, but they described it. He had a big gash crack, like his skull was cracked. And he was bleeding out of his mouth. And he had 2 huge black eyes. And he had a bruise on his knee and some scratches on his arm. And apparently he had some broken headlight pieces in his shirt sleeve. But Attorney Lally never really made that case. And even though he mentioned it a few times, he never, that I remembered, showed the photographs and showed us the evidence and made it inconclusive. This man was hit by a vehicle. Was he run over? Did the vehicle actually break his bones and go? No. Is there only one way in the universe to get injured by a vehicle? No. Is there any rule or law or physics or study or scientific experiment or evidence that shows that every single time a human being is struck by a vehicle in any way, that it absolutely must have these particular injuries? No. When people say it's absolutely impossible, there is no way humanly possible on earth that a vehicle made those injuries, you have just put yourself in a box where you are not allowing yourself to see the evidence. You've made a determination, and therefore, because you've decided that this is the truth and these are the facts, everything that points to that not being true and her actually had hit him, those people refuse to see it. And you're willing to accept a story that all of these people are lying and conspiring and covering up and doing all this stuff on this great big old murder that there's zero evidence of. People do get away with murder. That's true. Wendy Adelson is getting away with murder right now. She's walking free, getting away with murder. And she conspired and colluded, and almost every single person except for her dad, who was part of that conspiracy theory, is in jail. Including her brother, including her mother, and including the 3 people that they hired. She's the last one except for her dad. Are they going to arrest her now after 11 years of getting away with murder? Well, there's no statute of limitations, so maybe, but it really fucking makes me angry that she's gotten to raise her children and be free all this time. But, anyway, people do get away with murder. And Casey Anthony is another fucking disgusting case of a murderer walking free. There wasn't enough evidence. There was reasonable doubt. People thought they just didn't know. I have reasonable doubt. But like that commenter said, reasonable doubt must be reasonable. Not this bullshit, wackadoodle, made-up story in la-la land, fantasy delusional. Everybody's a liar but me. Everybody's a liar but me. Everybody's a liar but me. Nah, I don't believe those storylines. Everybody's a liar but me needs a hell of a lot more evidence than a slightly different word said here or there, or family and friends talking about an extremely traumatic and horrible, horrific tragedy, trauma, a terrible event, a shocking and life-altering, never be the same again event, and they're talking about it. Wow, that's a conspiracy. And all of the people in the chat are like, oh my God, this absolutely proud. I'm just like, wow, you're sick. I don't know. I don't get it. And then to see Emily and Peter egging those kind of people on, I'm just like, I have a feeling that they are going to be doing a 180 sooner than later. Listen to Karen's own words. And if you can listen to Karen saying these things, and you can hear all this evidence, and you can listen to somebody like Jen McCabe testifying, and you glean from that Jen is a liar, Carrie is a liar, everybody's a liar, and Karen is this sweet, innocent damsel in distress who's being, taken advantage of and again, railroaded and framed for something she didn't do. Like, people actually think that John went into the house and got beaten to death, and then after they beat him to death, they decided to cleverly frame Karen Reed, who they somehow she knew at 4 something in the morning to be so panicked that she actually thought that he was dead, and she thought she was going to find him on the side of the road. I guess she's a fucking psychic that she knew that they beat him to death and left him right there where she happened to drop him off. What makes sense to you? Does it make sense to you that maybe they're pissed, if they are pissed, because they're sick and tired of being blamed for Karen's murder? All right, well, after this, you're going to hear the clip that I screen recorded from trial today, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to hit like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you never miss the next video. Join me on my website. You can join me on Patreon for free, or as a member, you can subscribe on YouTube for free, or join as a member. And you can join me on my website, catlovedreamingpeach.com, on all platforms. You can also be a member on my website. You can access lots of my playlists, and I have other things that's popping on and popping off on my website. And soon I will be updating my shop, so you can shop for some of my handmade art, pottery, some paintings, and we'll see what else. Okay, bye for now. Oh wait, I want to do a quick shout out. Big shout out. Welcome, let me reflect. Thank you so much for joining Paul Ratcliffe and A. Rodriguez. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your membership. Thank you for supporting me. And I hope
What happened to him.
And finally, clip 17, please.
Experienced the expect dog. It was like a buffalo on the prairie, which is just weird. We're not two things. Either he's hurt himself and is incapacitated.
Hold on before you play it
We've
again.
already played that one. We don't need to play it again.
Okay.
12A, please. Okay. May I proceed?
Yes.
I'd like to play clip 12, please.
There was a woman who was a mother to kids that were close to John's kids, who lived very close to the Alberts. In fact, when Jen was navigating John to the Alberts when I was driving, she said it's near Ashley's house. Ashley and John were hooked up prior to John and I dating. There was a woman...
Hold on. Hold on before you play it
We've
again.
already played that one. We don't need to play it again.
Okay.
12A, please.
Two things. Either he's hurt himself and is incapacitated. He could be passed out on someone's couch, which is just weird. We're not on a campus. Everyone lives in their own home with children. or he's sleeping with someone. And there were multiple women in the neighborhood of Fairview that John had been with. And one of them very recently, before I started dating John.
Clip 16, please.
We'll backtrack later to the time of the time therapy, but let's start at 34 therapy. So, who are you with? And you pull up and what do you see?
I'm with Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts, and Carrie Roberts is Ford Explorer. And I'm in the back, leaning over the front two seats. Carrie's driving and Jen's in the passenger seat. And I describe this to everyone, so you've probably heard this before, but John looked like a buffalo on the prairie. It was just a lawn and a heat that it wasn't a bush or a hydrant or a dog. It was a weird shaped lump at that time in those elements. And I was looking to find him on the side of the road. I was expecting I'd find him. And the fear of what I was going to see is the worst feeling I've ever experienced. The anticipation of what is awaiting me was as extreme a feeling. I wouldn't say it was as extreme a feeling as the grief of realizing what happened to him.
And finally, clip 17, please.
We need to see the court before this one's going.
All right, hold that, please.
Your call Ms. Hannah Knowles to the stand.
catlovedreamingpeach.com.
catlovedreamingpeach.com.
catlovedreamingpeach.com.